the backlog in between, it starts falling. So, in other words, the time at which you meet here, which is 22.75, exactly when you have the crossing point, that's when this backlog is reaching its maximum. It comes up down under the untitled there, see? And then when you go here, you can see the same, but it's down here under the screen. Right? So what happens now is that the backlog is well contained, and there is a control for the backlog. In the previous simulation, what you saw was that the backlog ended up somewhere, right? Wherever it ended up. We had no desire, we had no control over the backlog. Now we do, and we bring it down to the desired level. How do we bring it down? By producing more than what we normally would have done. This means that the difference between the repair rate and the expected order rate, that difference constitutes my correction. Remember, I have a correction for the backlog. The repair rate consists of two components. One is the expected order rate, which is up there to the purple line. In addition to that, you have a correction for the backlog. Now comes an interesting technical question, which only system dynamicists understand. And the question is, when does the production reach its maximum? Is it exactly when the difference between desired backlog and backlog is at the maximum? Is it before that, or is it after that? In order to study that, you could do two things. You could look at the correction, and you could see when it's maximum. And no, you can't do that here because it's much smaller than this amount. So we will have to go down to 0. But the thing we can do now is to focus in on the graph here. I don't know how large you can make it. Look at this. I said that the production is the very smooth, nice expected order rate plus the difference between desired and actual backlog, or actual and desired backlog, divided by 8. So it's proportional to that difference. Okay, so this means that the difference is growing. The difference between the purple line and the red line, that difference is growing, as you can see, and it grows to a maximum. That's when there is the largest difference between backlog and desired backlog. Then it starts dropping. So the difference between the red and the blue line, or the purple line, is dropping. The question is, does the red line still increase? And the answer is yes, because there is an underlying increase in the expected order rate. So what that means is that it does increase, and as long as that increase in the expected order rate is larger than the decrease in correction of backlog, it will still increase. It will still go up. So what we have here is a situation where the maximum difference between these two are over here, but the maximum production is later, which is important when you're doing production planning. It's just like, I think, if you're in an elevator where the roof can go up and down, if the floor is increasing, even if the roof has reached the maximum height over the floor and coming down, as long as the floor is still going up, the floor is still going up, it will push the roof even higher. Even if the roof is coming down towards the floor, it still increases in absolute terms. So in other words, we have an analysis here which tells us this. The other question that is important in this analysis is the following. Can this system oscillate? Because we observed oscillations, and one of the exercises that we give our students is modify some of the parameters here and see, for instance, the time to correct or the time to form an expectation, and see whether the system then can oscillate. And the answer is no, it cannot. Now, it's not very easy to prove that, but we prove it by a mathematical proof of contradiction. And I'll show you how we do that. We are going to assume. Did you have a question? Okay. Let's go back to the model to answer those questions first. So you are asking service time. Okay. The service time is something that you choose. Okay. So it's something I decide that the customer is probably satisfied by a 1-day delivery. Maybe it would be 2 days, maybe it would be 3 days, but I define that from the outside, okay? What I did was then to say, what must the desired backlog be if I decide on a particular service time? And my claim is that I should take the order rate. I don't have the order rate, but I do have an expectation about the order rate, which I believe should correspond to my repair rate when the system is in equilibrium. And I take that and I multiply by what I believe or think should be the service time. So you might call it not service time, you might call it desired service time. So let's do that. I think that might clarify matters. So let's call this desired service time. DES service time, desired service time. That gives me a desired backlog given my expectation about orders. If the service time had been 4, then the backlog must have been 4 times the inflow of orders. In this case, it is equal to the inflow of orders because I have a service time of 1 single day. But it's desired. It's the desired service time, which gives me a desired backlog, which gives me an opportunity to compare the actual backlog with the desired one. Okay, if I want a measure of the actual service time, if I want to know what the service time is in the model at any point in time, I can define that by saying, I'm not taking the desired backlog now, I take the actual backlog as input, and I divide through the repair rate. So I say, well, that is backlog, say 4,000, and then I say divided by the repair rate, which gives me 4,000 divided by 1,000, which gives me 4 days. Because notice that backlog is bicycles and the repair rate is bicycles per day, so the unit of measure will be days, 4 days. So now, it's a very good question you had there, because now I can plot the service time with the desired service time. That gives me a very good indicator of whether I am producing enough or not, whether I'm satisfying my customers. The next question you had was the time to correct backlog. Yeah. Well, the thinking is very much the same as we had in connection with the expectation formation. In other words, I have a variable which I desire to reach, in this case, I said that the expected order rate should eventually become equal to the order rate. So I took the difference between the two and I divided by the time to change that order rate. Or I did it the other way around, namely had a weight on that.
So the expected order rate is not anymore equal to the
No.
corrected by time change.
So the expected order rate is adjusting towards the order rate over a certain period of time. The same thing will happen here. I'm saying that I am correcting for a discrepancy, a difference between the backlog and the desired backlog. If there is such a difference, I am willing to close the gap. How do I close the gap? Well, if I have more unrepaired bicycles than I want to have, I increase my production. Now, do I close that gap immediately? No. I say, well, let's be a little careful here and just close the gap over a period of time, which I specify here to be 8 days. What it means is if there is a difference, and that difference if there is a difference, I take 1/8 of that difference and I close the gap by 1/8 of that gap by producing a little bit more. Now I close the gap a little bit, so now I take 1/8 of the difference again and I add that to my production rate, so I produce a little bit more than I normally would do. And then I continue until the gap between the backlog and the desired backlog is 0. When I have no more backlog to work on, no more beyond what I would normally have or what I desire to have, so that the backlog is equal to desired backlog, the correction is 0. And how much do I repair then? I repair what I expect will be coming in, the expected order rate, so that I get an outflow that corresponds to my inflow. And there is no need for additional work because the backlog is where it should be. Is that? Oh, the formula would then be, the formula would then be the backlog that I have minus the desired backlog, which gives you a positive number. If I have more in my backlog than I want. And that positive number translates into more production than I normally would have, which drains my backlog. Okay? So far, I have introduced a feedback that works wonderfully. It stabilizes the system where it should be. It gives me full control on the backlog, so everything is nice. Okay, now I realize that one, this doesn't match the problem, that it doesn't explain, it doesn't give me the problem that Mr. Wong is facing. This is too nice a behavior, so I don't address this problem. And the second thing is, I do not represent in the model what actually must produce that problem. So this model is not a good enough model. It produces a wonderful behavior. That's not what's interesting in my mind. So what I have to do now is to do the following. I have to say the production rate that you have here is no more than a desired production rate. Because when I have a desired production rate, I need to build the capacity to produce as much as that. So what I'll do now is to say I am taking this one away, and I'm taking this one away, and I'm saying that the desired production is the same as we previously had as production. In other words, it is the order rate plus the correction for backlog. is no longer production rate, is the desired production rate. Desired production, or is it repair? Yeah, repair rate. Okay. This is what I want to repair, not what I do repair. So, in other words, I now have to find out what is my capacity? What is that supposed to be? And in this case, my capacity is workforce. So I need to find out the desired workforce. And the desired workforce is the desired repair rate. And now we have to rely on our knowledge about units of measure. So how do I get the desired workforce from the desired repair rate? Well, this is bicycles that I want to repair per day. This is people who are repairing the bicycles, so it's people. How do I convert bicycles per day to people? Well, take the other way. I have people. How do I convert that into bicycles per day? I say people multiplied by bicycles per person per day, repaired per person per day. That's the productivity, isn't it? Now I go the other way around and I say I have bicycles per day that I want to repair. I want to know how many people that I need. I divide by productivity, which is bicycles produced per person per day. And I know how many persons I need, what the workforce should be. So in other words, here's a productivity, which is a constant in the model. And the productivity is set to 20 bicycles repaired per day, per person. Okay? So now I have the desired repair rate, which is equal to the expected order rate plus the correction for backlog. And I take the desired repair rate and I divide by the productivity, which gives me exactly what I want. Desired repair rate per, bicycles repaired per day over the productivity, bicycles repaired per person per day. I'm left with persons. We are defining desired workforce. And the desired workforce is the desired repair rate. I was forgetting that you were doing it as well. Desired repair rate over productivity, divided by productivity, set to 20 units per day, per person. Productivity. Productivity is 20 bicycles repaired per person per day. Absolutely. It's the same as we earlier had as the repair rate. But now we don't get that repair rate. We need workforce. In order to find out what we need a workforce, we need to express this as the desired repair rate. Absolutely. The correction of backlog in parentheses divided by the time to correct backlog. Good. Okay. Productivity is a constant, which the number of bicycles repaired per person that's working there per day. So that's the unit of measure, and here is exactly where we can get a help for analyzing the units of measure, right? In other words, we have this complicated thing about bicycles per day to be repaired. We have a productivity of bicycles repaired per person. One divided by the other gives you persons. That needs to be employed to get the desired repair rate that we would like to have. So we changed the desired repair rate into a desired workforce now. Now I'm going to do a simplification because this is late in the day. This is late in the day, and I realized that it would be perhaps too much to do it the detailed way that I showed you in the original model. But it's not a big deal what I'm doing right now. It's mathematically exactly the same. So what I'm saying is that finally we can talk about the workforce, because now we have a desired workforce. So now we can talk about what should the workforce be and how should it change. And we use the same kind of principle. We say we have a desired level, we have an actual level, and we want to close the gap between the two over a period of time, which happens to be 25 time units. When we hire people, we have to train them for 25 days, and in fact, you have to have another person go out there and train them. So, the fact that you have to have a person helping them, more or less, for 25 days reduces that person's productivity, which is only compensated by the fact that this person who's being trained is faster and faster getting into the process of repairing bicycles. The second thing is that not only when you recruit people, but also when you fire people, you want to get rid of people, it takes 25 days to do that, because there is a 25 days notice. That is, from you say you have to leave until the person actually leaves. So what I'm doing now is a simplification where I say both the hiring and the firing goes through this flow. That is so illegal in system dynamics. You don't know. This hurts me a lot to do this. And I will tell you why, because that's an important thing. When you design a flow, then that flow should represent only one thing, one mechanism, not both the hiring process, which is one process totally different from the firing process. It's like when you have a stock of a population and you have net birth rate. Ugh, terrible. One thing is to be born, another thing is to die. We do see the difference there, right? And I think that in order for a model to represent reality in a very transparent way, you should be able to see deaths, and you should be able to see births. You should be able to see hiring, and you should be able to see firing in the model. If not, if you have this mysterious net addition to the workforce, net birth rate, there is nothing in reality that's called net birth rate. God never invented that. He creates people and he kills them, right? That's it. And those are two very different processes. And it has very different implications. When somebody is born, they are then affecting the administrative system. You got a person number, lots of things are happening. When they die, and more or less the opposite happens, right? And then you have a burial. You don't have a birth, you have a burial. So, it's very different processes, and we better represent them explicitly in the model. So this hurts me a lot. I don't know, this is terrible. Now, the workforce is initially equal to the desired workforce. Do we agree about that? Because, we don't want to initialize the model differently than in equilibrium, at least not this time. So the workforce, when you double click on that, you start writing D, E, S, and so on, and up comes all the variables that started with that, and you pick the one that's called desired workforce. Good. Then you say, how does it change? And we're going to do the simple thing. We're going to say it changes the following way, that you have a desired workforce, which of course is input, because you need to know whether you should increase or decrease the workforce. And you have to know about what is the workforce right now. And then I am defining a time to change the workforce. And it takes 25 days, whether you hire them and get them in, or you fire them and kick them out, right? So that's where I'm doing this simplification. It's not wrong, but it is not really, really nice. So I need to call this something, and I call it net hiring rate. I could also call it net adjustment of workforce if I wanted that. There are many names I could use. Well, net adjustment of workforce is perhaps better. Net adjustment of workforce. So then I'm very neutral. Do I adjust it upwards or do I adjust it downwards? And then this is then, of course, the time to adjust the workforce. Over how long time do I perform that adjustment? So this is the time to adjust the workforce. Huh? Average time. You are so right. It's the average time to adjust the workforce. Yeah. You're absolutely right. So then I would look at the gap between two variables. Which variables? The desired workforce and the actual workforce. You've seen this 3 times now. I take the gap between what I want and what I have. I slash, I divide that by a time over which I want to close that gap. And I let that influence what will now create that mechanism that closes the gap, which is the hiring process or the firing process. So I divide by the time to adjust the workforce. Now, the time to adjust the workforce is 25 days. I said, why do I write 15? Because it's late in the day. And then, how do I now create a repair rate? Well, I say that, and this is not necessary, but it will be necessary when I go one step further and introduce a policy. I say that this is the normal repair rate. By normal, I mean if you have a workforce and they work at their standard productivity. And now it's fairly easy because, the regular repair rate or normal repair rate will be the workforce you have, how many people do you have, multiply their productivity by their productivity. How much do they repair per day, each of them? So if you have 10 people and they repair 20 bicycles per day, they are able to repair 200 bicycles per day. That's the normal repair rate. Workforce times productivity gives you actual repair rate. So workforce and then times productivity. And what I do now is to say I want to let the repair rate be equal to the normal repair rate. So for now, that's just to enable us to introduce overtime later. So in other words, the normal repair rate is no longer this expression here. That was used for the desired repair rate. I used the desired repair rate to calculate how much workforce I needed, desired workforce. I hire the people or fire them to get that workforce. I then define that as the normal repair rate, and now the normal repair rate is equal to the actual repair rate. Yeah. Okay? Yes. I said the repair rate up here is equal to the normal repair rate. So that's just for now. We will modify that later on. No, tomorrow evening, no. Next year. So remember that we had a correction of backlog and an order rate that went into a repair rate. So we had a loop here which was very, very short, and it operated wonderfully. We no longer have that loop. We have the long loop that goes through hiring people, getting the workforce built up, then repairing. So in other words, the repair rate that we're using here now is no longer responding immediately to the backlog. It responds after you have hired people. So there is a resistance now towards hiring people and getting the repair rate to correct for the backlog. That is interesting because it tells me that when there is a resistance here, the backlog will accumulate in the meantime. And if there is a short circuit, if there is a quick way of fixing the problem, and we introduce that, that will be utilized that way. Okay, so what we do now is to say, I want to report on the model here now. So what we have are a couple of variables up here that we need to supplement. The production rate that we had is gone from here. No, it's still there. Let me see. It's the order rate that we have. It's the repair rate that we still have. It's the expected order rate, but we don't have the desired repair rate. So we need to compare with that. And of course, we need to make sure that they are reported on the same level. Excuse me, there, and I think this might be an okay number for that. Definitely not. I said 0 here, it should be 1,000 here. That'll make it better. Then I have the backlog and desired backlog. That's super. Then I would like to report on the desired. I need to stick it in here. The desired and the actual workforce. And I could, which is very typical, I could also report on the change in the workforce. But right now, I'm not going to do that. So now, let's see what happens when I run the system. I need to make sure that these two are in line, reported the same way and with thick lines so you can see what's happening. And now we're back to the problem that Mr. Wong has. So what you see here is a situation where the desired workforce increases because you have such an enormous backlog building up due to the delay in correcting the capacity. And when you don't have capacity, you don't repair quickly, which means that you accumulate even more. So the backlog is building and building and building, and the the backlog is building and building, and the desired production is increasing. When the desired production is increasing, what happens to the desired workforce? It's increasing. So this one causes that one, which causes this one. You can see that they move in the same proportional to each other. Then, this is the workforce you have. The difference between what you have and what you get creates the need for more workforce. So when you need more workforce, you actually get it, but that's a slow process. So all the way up here, there is a positive difference between the two, which means that they increase that workforce. Suddenly, for some reason, the desired workforce, goes below the actual workforce, which means that the workforce starts dropping. Then the desired workforce is above the actual workforce, which means that the workforce is increasing. So you can see that it actually follows this need for workforce, up or down. Okay, so when you get the workforce eventually, that will lead to a production rate. In other words, you get the workforce multiplied by the constant productivity, and then that's when you get the repair rate. So the repair rate is proportional to the actual workforce that you acquire over time. Now you can explain why the backlog comes up, because you look at the difference between the order book, or the order rate, which is this one, the blue one, and the repair rate, which is the red one. And that difference between the two is building up in the backlog. So let's go the circle and see what happens. What happens is that the order rate steps up. The repair rate is in the beginning just down at this level. It builds up a backlog, which causes a desired production, which is down here, the green line, which causes a desired workforce, which eventually gives you a workforce, the red one, which then causes you to start repairing, which closes the gap between the order rate and the repair rate, which brings the backlog to halt at a maximum here, and then eventually, when the repair rate is above the order rate, so you repair more than you receive of orders, that's when the backlog is turning downwards again. But notice that it grows and grows and grows, that backlog, far beyond where it really should have been, because you are waiting and waiting and waiting for capacity to build up. Okay, so that's the sort of simple version, at least, of the story that goes here. And what we previously learned was that if I take the desired repair rate and I make that the repair rate, the actual repair rate, then things were so beautiful. You didn't oscillate. You didn't build up this big backlog. So could we do something similar? Could we, in other words, short circuit the long loop here, introduce a small loop that immediately leads to a repair rate when the backlog requires it? And the answer is yes. And I'll just quickly do that. That'll be the last 10 minutes of our modeling exercise today. And I just need to make sure that you see what I'm doing. So I will do this way instead. Yes? Excuse me? It is inverted? What's the model expression of the desired workforce? It's probably reversed. So it's probably your workforce minus desired. Desired workforce is the repair rate. Multiplied, no, divided by productivity. Yeah. Go down to your net adjustment or workforce. Desired workforce minus workforce over time adjust. Which is correct. Yeah, no, that's correct. So then, is there a problem with the desired repair rate? Okay, so then your problem lies in the correction for backlog. Is it backlog minus desired? Come on, help me out here. So, are you quite sure that you have the right direction for this? Is the white arrow into the stock? Come on. Okay. Let me take 1 minute and just fix this for him, and then I'll be back. The rest of your line. just a reporting. Okay, so what I do now is to say.
Now it's the same. That works.
It works? Good. So what we do now is to say that we are willing to work overtime, right? That's the policy solution here. And we respond, therefore, to a pressure. And, you know, a pressure could be a schedule pressure, could be expressed in very many ways. So for some reason, I'm using capitals now. That's fine, because this is important. This is a policy thing. So what I have here is that the normal repair rate is compared, the desired repair rate is compared to the normal repair rate. And the way one can compare is, of course, by way of a difference, but it would be better to say it's the desired repair rate over the normal repair rate. If the two are equal, if I desire to produce what I normally would produce, the ratio between them is 1. If my desired repair rate, if I want to produce more than I normally would do, I have a scheduled pressure above 1, right? And vice versa, under 1 if I have nothing to do or little to do, compared to what I would normally do. So that is important. I therefore create an effect of the schedule pressure on the repair rates. Normally, when you see in system dynamics model an effect of something on something else, it indicates that there is a nonlinear table function that is being produced inside here. And the first thing that I think is important to recognize is how should this be used? Normally, the output of a table function is multiplied in. So in other words, the repair rate is the normal repair rate multiplied by an effect of the schedule pressure on the repair rate. In other words, that effect will be above 1 if you need to produce more, below 1 if you want to produce less, or equal to 1 if what you want to produce is what you normally produce. So what that means is that we are now, and I say this because very many people, at least when they teach, they say, this one creates a schedule pressure, which then creates a repair rate. And then they specify the table function before they know how to use that table function. We need to know how should the output be used, because it tells me that this output must be somewhere around 1, a little bit above 1, then I multiply by that and I boost repairs. A little bit less, I reduce repairs compared to what's normal. So then the input, of course, is going to be this one. And now I'll just show you how to produce a table function. So, yeah, can I do that here? Probably not, because see? The window is too small. Come on in. Help me, please. Did you have a comment here on how to, I think, ESC? No. Come on, that's guessing. I think it deals with preferences. I don't know. Let me just see here. Model. Maybe model. Nothing of this helps. And it wouldn't help to take it out of the screen, because then you don't see very much. Okay, so I'm going to do... I can't even close this one. That's when you suggest to use...
No, you can do it here. Close it
Yeah, you close it here, but then I'd never get the bottom portion of this because it's too. So how do I set the screen here? Screen preferences on. I only have one option, right?
Otherwise you have to go to preferences. So what's the problem?
The problem is the following, that if I click here, I don't get the.
Okay, I get it. So, can I do it? Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, I get what you mean. And you can go further down, right?
No.
Is there supposed to be something else?
Yep. Down on this one.
Yes, we got something here, but I don't know if it's.
It's not what I need.
things that
I
you-
need it further down.
maybe.
Yeah. Phenomenal. Yeah, got it. So, yeah,
Now the trick is that, okay.
here we are. Thank you. So I'm clicking on this little red thing down here, which gives me a graph. And for some reason, I need to present it as graphical. I don't know why I need to click here, but there's a double click somewhere here. What I want is a schedule pressure that goes from 0, nothing to do, to 2, which means I want to produce, I desire a production which is double as large as what I normally would produce. So that gives me, come on, 2. Good. And then what I want to go from is 0 and from 0.8 to 1.2. Yes. Schedule pressure, well, if it could be above 2, yeah, I don't think it will be in the model, but it could theoretically be, absolutely. It could be 3 or 4 or 5. Exactly. So I'm just limiting it now to make this table. And what I would do then is to say I have 11 points here. I have this one. I said 11, right? So why does this only give me 2? No, it's okay. So I got numbers here, and I'm going to be using numbers from the original model here. So if I am at 0 pressure, I still want to work. The workers say, I can't go away from this work and not receive any salary. So they rewind. This variable. Okay. So the repair rate. This one. How do you get here? Okay, I don't know. I'll do it again. When you double click here, you get these equation stuff and all that. Then you go down here and you get the table, right? The red thing here.
Now you cannot see it, but.
Then you click on the graphical, right? And now you would have this display. And now I want to go to the points here. Okay?
Either draw it by drawing.
I could draw it here. Why am I not seeing the rest here? Because see, here I can look at the details and I can do this. So I could draw it, which means I could just do this. What you need to be careful about then is the following. Where is 1? 1 is here, and where is 1 here? Probably there, right? 1. No. What? These values that I set, I could set if I go into points here, and I could set them here. But if I use the graph because I want to do a quick modeling here, I don't want to bother with the details at the moment, I can just draw this. The important thing is that I need to go through 1, 1.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have a schedule pressure, I should work as normal. When I then go to the points, you can see that it already has recorded what I drew in the drawing. So you could choose and, lift this in from a spreadsheet or write down the numbers, or I could do the quick thing and just draw it. What this says is that when I have a very high schedule pressure, I just don't want to work more than 20% above what's normal. When I have a very low schedule pressure, I still want to work 80% because I need the salary. If I have exactly what if I want to work exactly what I normally work, then I do that. In other words, it goes through 1, 1. And then the changes that takes place in terms of using overtime or short time, that change predominantly takes place exactly here around this time, this pressure. And you can see I'm very sensitive here. The table function is very steep here. I am very little sensitive. In fact, over here I don't respond to more schedule pressure at all. And the same down here, I don't respond. So the steeper the curve is, the more responsive I am, the more violently I respond by working overtime or not. And now that I've worked this into the model, so I respond to the schedule pressure, and all I need to do is to say okay, which is, where do I say okay here? Is there an okay button down here? Yeah, but it's not here. I don't reach it. I'm in trouble again. I don't reach that button there, so I need this one to go away.
You wanna, okay,
I want it even higher up.
even higher up.
Even higher up. I can't get it even higher up, can I? No. If I just do this, doesn't help.
Yeah, but the problem is that it doesn't work. No, you cannot, because now it's
Drag it up.
close. What do you mean? This one?
Down and to the left, next to 0.8.
Down and to the left. But no, but we don't want this actually. We want to go further down here.
I have to reach that little
We
tick
have to
mark
reach
down.
the apply mark.
It's just incredible.
If you close it, it works. Okay. So it seems that if you close it, it works.
It seems to work.
Double click again.
No, do I dare do that? And then I close it. So I can close it here, but that's when okay, good. Yeah, I mean, okay, everything is fine now. And what I want to do is to just demonstrate that this policy is actually working. So I'm using the Rosso thing, not the Meneguzzi thing, the Rosso thing. And then I do run, and I have a beautiful behavior, right? And the reason, as we talked about this morning, is that I am shifting the burden to the intervener. I am letting the workforce take the burden of fixing my problem. Notice, however, and this is something subtle, that I still do have a pressure over a period of time to increase my workforce. Why? Because I have permanently increased the demand. The order rate is up there. So there would be a need for a workforce unless I want to use the overtime continuously. And in fact, if you look at the workforce down here, if I ever reach the workforce, you will see that the workforce actually does increase by those 10%. So both of the mechanisms are present. The short-term solution to avoid the oscillations are dealt with by the small, short-circuiting, immediately reacting negative feedback loop here, which takes the burden intermittently. And then the long-term solution is also acting in the long run with a delay to increase the workforce, because that pressure is continuously there. So it's a wonderful thing where you see short-term problems dealt with in the short run, long-term problems or challenges dealt with in the long run. And what you see is that the reason why this is not permanently shifted over to the short-term solution is the following. When you build a workforce, the normal repair rate goes up, which reduces the scheduled pressure so that the signal from the desired production up to the scheduled pressure, forcing you to work overtime, that doesn't exist anymore. We have alleviated the problem by, in the meantime, raising the workforce. So I love more the analysis of what's happening than the modeling, because the modeling, depending on the software all the time. But, the analysis is predominantly depending on your brain, and your brain never fails. The software always fails. Shifting the burden to the intervener or something like that, yeah. Okay, so what we've done is in two cases today, the market growth model and this model, the backlog workforce model, we have demonstrated a principle of shifting the burden to the intervener, possible dependence, possible addiction. If this model is expanded to say that if you make a lot of mistakes, orders will reoccur in your system and you need to work even more overtime, then you are becoming addicted to the use of the workforce. We don't want that, and the solution is to rely on the traditional solution of hiring more people so that you don't have to be so dependent and so addicted to additional work. And similarly for the market growth model, where you don't want to shift the burden to equilibrate the order rate with the production rate or shipment rate to the market, because what the market is doing is just to reduce orders. That's not what you want to do. What you want to do is to increase your capacity to meet whatever orders that are coming from the market. With that, thank you very much. I will make sure now that all the material that I have produced is launched on a stick. Stefano will thereafter be responsible for bringing it on the web so that you can have a look at it and enjoy the feeling that you really sit back with a lot of material that you can investigate and come back to. If you want further education on this field, there is education in Italy in the field, this university in the field. If you want more specialized education, you come to Bergen for 6 weeks courses. There are 3 of them in the course of the fall semester. If you want to go beyond that, there are courses in the spring semester. If you want to go on a European tour, you come to Bergen the first semester. You enroll in Palermo or in Lisbon the next semester. You go to Nijmegen the third semester, and you can then choose where you want to do your fourth semester. That's the European Masters in System Dynamics. So that's my sales promotion. I was allowed to do that.
Yes.
The most important thing is,
it's on the website.
I have noticed that many of you do phenomenal work in System Dynamics. Now, please consider submitting your work to the System Dynamics Conference, which in this year will be in Delft in July, around the 20th of July. The deadline for submission is around, is it 3rd of March or something like that?
21st.
21st of March?
21st of March.
Yes. I'm the program chair. I will not guarantee that you will be allowed to present, but I think you'll be in the program if you submit something of quality. So if you don't submit, you're still more than welcome to come and to, meet many of the very nice, very helpful, very interesting people that tend to attend to that conference. And I think you'll enjoy it. So please consider coming to Delft in the Netherlands in July. You can just drive up and have fun.
Thank you, Paul. Just to give it a round of applause. It was an excellent session, and I thank you again for being here with us today and yesterday, of course. And well, to tell you something about the System Dynamics conference, actually, I was there for the first time. I didn't present anything in 2002, and I'm still here, so I got infected. So probably from today, those of you who didn't know System Dynamics got infected too, but it's, I think, a good infection. At least maybe you will not be using it for your work, or you will, which we all hope. But I think that, when I first turned out at the System Dynamics conference, of course I got to meet a lot of nice people like Paul and, like Kim Warren or Habib and other very, very nice persons. But it really changed and it opened my mind. So in a way, I'm more than happy to have been infected, and I think that it would happen for you as well. So I really also encourage you to attend the conference for sure, and also if you got something to submit, that would be more than welcome. On top of what Paul was saying, we will collect all the material of these 2 days. We will send out also a list of participants. My fault, I didn't realize that it was not inserted into the folder you got. So we will share all this information on the new website of the System Dynamics Italian chapter very, very soon, and we will advise all participants of this material being published. Again, we will also, but this will require a little bit more time. We will work on the movies, so on the registrations and on the recordings that we did today, and we will publish them as well. They will also be published on the Society's website, so the International Society's website. So very soon you will also be notified of where to reach those movies and how to access them. So this basically closes this 2 days workshop. I would really like to thank just let me say some thanks, of course. First of all, Paul and Kim that were with us today and agreed to run this workshop. All the speakers from yesterday, many of them are not here anymore. All of you who took part, and also the guys of of the organization, Valerio Ciuffini, who is probably around there. Valerio, maybe you can just give me a round of applause because he took care of a lot of things like the catering and all the logistics, which were excellently dealt with, and of course Camillo Carlini, who's working here with me at the DIAG, and Alessandro Cardazzone, who is has now left because he had a train. So thanks a lot. Maybe Habib wants to say something. Thank you very much. So we hope to see you soon again, and maybe in the next workshop or in the next occasion on the System Dynamics issue. Thanks. Bye-bye.